Our next speaker is going to be a real treat for us. It's Dr. Joey Faucette. He's an internationally known author of a #1 Amazon.com bestseller, Work Positive in a Negative World. Redefine your reality and achieve your business dreams. He is a professional speaker and coach who has taught business professionals this life-transforming process for over 2 decades, leading individuals and organizations of every size to achieving amazing results. He is a founder of Listen to Life, a company that helps people redefine their reality and fulfill their business dreams. He is the host of the syndicated radio show, Listen to Life, and writes a syndicated newspaper column of the same name and blogs them at www.listentolife.org that is read by more than 50 countries. Dr. Joey has appeared as a guest on hundreds of radio and TV shows across North America in the major markets, and he has written over 500 articles. I thought this one was a neat one. As a 9-year-old boy, Dr. Joey sold inscribed Christmas cards door to door in the heat of summer. Christmas cards in summer, when allergies prevented him from mowing lawns. Creativity and thinking how to redefine one's need. For 20 years, Dr. Joey led turnarounds in small, medium, and large organizations, all which set historical revenue and growth records. Please join me in welcoming our speaker, Dr. Joey Faucette.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
Good morning.
There you are. I knew you were there. I am proud to say this morning that I am a Virginian. I hail from Pennsylvania County. My personal cheering section is back here. My honey is here also. That's right. That's right. Jim Campbell knows and loves her better than me, which is totally understandable. But she's anchoring the back of the room. The woman whom I haven't decided, today being Veterans Day. Honey, I didn't know whether to get you the Purple Heart or the Medal of Honor for being married to me 30 years. But one or the other, you certainly are due. I am Joey come lately to Virginia. I'm a native North Carolinian, and I've only been in Virginia 15 years. Now, I know in Northern Virginia, that's a long time. But in South Central Virginia, I'm a Joey come lately. You know what I'm saying? So I'm absolutely delighted to be with you today. I had the opportunity of first meeting Christine Campbell before I met Jim Campbell. So you know that was a great day for me. Christine introduced me to Jim, and so I have had the privilege of a personal relationship with him. So many things that Lenny said about NACO are absolutely positively true. I spoke to the executives like Jim Campbell, who belong to NACO, recently at the Williamsburg Lodge, and found that organization to be wonderful. The new executive director, Matt, is a brilliant young man, and you certainly, as VACO, will benefit from his leadership. So Jim and I are here today together. Jim, I thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today to celebrate waves of change and... Okay, pick up your program or your bag. Let's all get on the same page here. It's waves of what?
Change.
And oceans of what?
Opportunity.
Thank you very much. Those two don't always go together, as you may have discovered recently. We have to be proactive in finding those oceans of change. And I don't know about you, but in the fourth quarter of 2008, when my business model changed without calling me ahead to get my personal permission, my business model changed in the fourth quarter of 2008. That was not just a wave of change. That was a tsunami that rolled through my personal business, as a whole lot of business rolled off of my books because meetings across the country began to cancel. Left and right. Dr. Joey, we're afraid we're going to have to cancel a meeting. I'm afraid we're going to have to cancel a meeting. In fact, I refused to answer the phone, and they left voicemail saying, Dr. Joey, we're going to have to cancel the meeting. Lots of money rolling off my books that never actually got on the book, and that wave of change was because these meetings were being canceled. Meetings, great meetings like this, but a lot of corporate meetings too. And so that wave of change began in the fourth quarter of 2008, and of course we all love the economic pundits, and they have to give names to things, and so what did they begin to call that wave of change in the fourth quarter of 2008? The Great Recession, exactly. And they could have called it whatever they wanted to. It depressed me. Maybe it did you too, and I'm sure your county has been affected by that tsunami of change that began in the private sector in fourth quarter of '08 and has begun to affect you. And listening to Speaker Howell this morning, of course, we understand that there are more waves of change, which we trust bring oceans of opportunity. Well, Honey looked at me when I was home, because typically I travel to go and speak. I've been in Oklahoma, Texas, and Louisiana the past few weeks. She looked at me one day and said, "Isn't it time for you to travel?" I couldn't decide whether that was a way of saying I need to change the locks on the doors while you're gone. But then she explained further. We live on a small horse farm in Pennsylvania County. She said to me, "No, I know you ride a cash cow when you leave here, and I want you riding that cow out and bringing back some money for our family." Since there was very little business, a speaker without meetings, like a fish out of water, so what was I to do? I began to do some research into what was going on during this Great Recession. I grew up with grandparents who were farmers and also country store proprietors, and I grew up listening to them talk about their growing up years. And of course, being from the South, we are wonderful storytellers. We get on the front porch together around the Sunday dinner table, and what do? We tell stories. And so I grew up listening to them tell stories about the Great Depression, which depression was an economic, not a medical term at that time in our country's history. And the Great Depression was absolutely, and again we heard Speaker Howell reference it, the worst economic period in our nation's history. And so I thought to myself, let me do some research into the Great Depression, because there must have been some business persons who created a business or started a business during that period of time that's still thriving today, that not only made it through the Great Depression, but actually survived until today. How did they do it? Because I want to discover what were their daily habits, their core practices, so that I could put it into practice in my business and begin growing my business. So I found this guy who lived in Missouri, lived in a farming community. His parents were sharecroppers. He moved to New York City, which is forever from Missouri, right? Rented a room in the YMCA and began holding public speaking classes, because that's one of the great fears people have. Some of them would rather die than they had to stand up and speak before a group. None of you, of course. Some of you are chomping at the bit to get up right now. Let me get up and speak to the group. Come on, Jim. Well, some people don't like to speak in front of public, so this guy began holding public speaking classes. Then the great run on the banks occurred on Black Tuesday. Nobody was coming to do the public speaking classes, and so it was a great time. He decided to write a book. And so he read this little book, which went on to become the #2 bestseller in the country for many, many years, second only to the #1 bestseller, which you might guess is exactly the least read bestseller ever published. And so it was the #2 bestseller. That one book propelled a series of books, which became an international training company that this past year celebrated, during this past summer, celebrated 100 years in operation. That company did $27 million worth of business last year internationally. In fact, more international work than they did here in the U.S. I'll bet some of you have actually experienced part of their training program. Anybody ever read How to Win Friends and Dale Carnegie wrote that book in 1936 in the teeth of the Great Depression. It became the #2 bestseller and a training company that did $27 million worth of business last year. How did he do it? What were Dale Carnegie's daily habits, his core practices that led him to create a business in the heart and teeth of the worst economic depression in our nation's history, in the world's history really, that still thrives today? So I said, I want to learn what Dale Carnegie did. I want to put it into my own business. I want to practice what Dale Carnegie did. Well, then the thought occurred to me, maybe Dale Carnegie was a freak of nature. There are a few of those out there, people who will succeed no matter what. So let me continue my research. And I found a guy, a mechanic up in Corbin, Kentucky. I don't know if anybody's ever been to Corbin, Kentucky, but it's a humble place. Maybe somebody was born. No, nobody was born. You've all been here since 1766, just like the homestead, right? You're native Virginians, and that's the way you got elected to your board of supervisors, right? Okay. Well, up in Corbin, Kentucky, there was a mechanic, and of course, when the Great Depression happened, people began stopping mechanic work, and he said, well, I've got these living quarters, this little apartment over the garage. People enjoy my cooking. Maybe they'll come eat Sunday dinner with me. So he started cooking out of those living quarters and began serving right out of the front door. People liked it. They started coming to eat Sunday dinner with him. So many people came to eat with him, in fact, that he opened a little restaurant right there. By the way, his first wife divorced him because he, quote, could not hold a job. Evidently, going from mechanic to cook was not her idea of a stable marriage, so she left him at that point. He began cooking and lots of people began coming by, but then the government, you may remember from history books, started putting interstate highway systems through as a way of reviving our country and providing infrastructure. I-75 bypassed Corbin, Kentucky, and so the thoroughfares were no longer there, bringing people naturally to his restaurant. So at 66 years of age, he filed for bankruptcy. All he had left was a station wagon, a few chicken legs and thighs, and 11 secret herbs and spices. Now, the food is absolutely delicious here at the homestead, but I gotta tell you, at least once a month, I need some Kentucky Fried Chicken. I just need to get my grease changed, you know, from that mechanic restaurateur. Don't you know his first wife wishes she had that one back? Multi-billion-dollar company, even in China. They eat Kentucky Fried Chicken, okay? KFC, they call it. What did Harlan Sanders do? What did Dale Carnegie do? What were their daily habits and core practices that created these businesses in the midst of the Great Depression that are multi-million and billion-dollar businesses even today? Well, maybe Harlan and Dale were both freaks, so I continued my research, and I discovered a couple of guys out in Palo Alto, California, Stanford graduates, who were working out of a garage. You know, a lot of great businesses have started in garages. I don't know if you know that Michael Dell created Dell Computers, but these two guys were working out of a garage, and then the hydroelectric projects were going across the country. TVA in Tennessee, and then the Hoover Dam and things like that were built during the Great Depression to provide electricity to the entire country. And so that which we take for granted today until Hurricane Sandy or something like that blows through, you know, was nouveau back then. People were saying to Bill and Dave, the two guys who were making little electric motors in this Palo Alto garage, look, we're not sure this electricity thing's going to catch on. You've never heard any of your constituency say that about any idea you've come up with for your county, have you? We're not sure this is going to catch on. But they continued to persist, and in fact, they made so many little electric motors and sold so many little electric motors that in order to keep the government from taking all of their money, they decided to incorporate. And in 1939, Bill and Dave Incorporated looked at each other and said, what are we going to call this little company? Well, we could call it Bill and Dave's. Well, no, we need something a little catchier than that. Okay, well, if our first names won't work, let's use our last names. Bill Hewlett and Dave Packard. And has anybody printed anything with one of those little electric motors lately? HP. You think that idea is going to catch on? Maybe. Bill and Dave created HP in the midst of the Great Depression. So how did they do it? I wanted to know because I wanted these core practices in my business because I take a great deal of pride in being a tax-paying citizen of Pennsylvania County. I consider it my personal responsibility to be successful, and I'm successful internationally, read in more than 50 countries, but my money comes back home to provide education for my two daughters. They've been through the Pennsylvania County schools. They live in Atlanta and in North Carolina now, but they were wonderfully educated. I drive the highways in my county. I know my Board of Supervisors by name. It's my responsibility as a tax-paying citizen to be successful on as large a platform as I can so that I can give more than my fair share to my county to help my county prosper and grow. That's how I exercise my freedom, friends. That's how I take liberty to the Faucette household. And so I wanted to grow up my business, and these 5 core practices I discovered from Dale Carnegie, Harlan Sanders, and Bill Hewlett, and Dave Packard quickly were this. First of all, I discovered that they said to themselves each and every day, I perceive the positive at work. Say that with me. I perceive the positive at work. Say it this time with a little meaning and conviction, friends. I perceive the positive at work. I focus my mind on the positive strengths, and I filter out the negative. We'll talk more about how to do that in just a moment. The second core practice I discovered was a social dynamic of a work-positive lifestyle. And that was I conceive the positive at work. Say that with me. I conceive the positive at work. This is a social dynamic. This is the relational dynamic of being positive and working positive in any kind of economy so that you reach scales of success. We'll talk in just a moment about how you deal with negative people without becoming one yourself. Anybody interested in that? I know none of us here in the great Commonwealth of Virginia have negatively oriented constituents, do we? Oh no, Dr. Joey, we'll lie to you this morning. I know you do because I live next door to some of them, okay? I know at least we do in Pennsylvania County. How do you deal with those people without becoming negative yourself? I conceive the positive at work. So once I perceive it mentally and I conceive it socially, then I believe the positive at work. Say that with me. I believe the positive at work. This is the emotional engagement, and you, public servants, you get this better than anybody in our communities. You understand the need to give back and to make a positive difference in your community. So you're emotionally engaged with why you do what you do. But the other aspect of I believe the positive at work I discovered is the ability to willingly suspend disbelief and redefine the reality around you so that you achieve success not based on what has been done, but these oceans of opportunity that come to us in the midst of these waves of change. So we'll talk about how to do that in just a moment. So I perceive it mentally, I conceive it socially, I believe it emotionally, and then I discovered that these Great Depression gurus increased their revenue with greater productivity and created a better lifestyle for themselves, their families, and their communities by achieving the positive at work. They said to themselves each day, I achieve the positive at work. Would you say that with me? I achieve the positive at work. There's not much traffic out there on the extra mile, is there? When you're willing to go that extra mile, it's amazing the kind of results you get. And so what I discovered was that Dale Carnegie, Harlan Sanders, Bill Hewlett, and Dave Packard were all results-oriented, driven kinds of guys, and so they went that extra mile. How did they do that? We'll talk about that in just a minute. I perceive it, conceive it, believe it, achieve it, and I thought I had discovered the secret to these Great Depression gurus. I thought 4 core practices, that's it, but then I stumbled upon a 5th, and I'm so glad I did because it captures the heart and soul of why we're here as VACO for this weekend and this week's meeting. I receive the positive at work. Would you say that with me? I receive the positive at work. We understand that what goes around, that you really do reap what you sow. This was a dynamic I discovered that I underestimated in the life of these Great Depression gurus. They sowed back into their community and understood that servant leadership is the key to success in creating not just a wonderful lifestyle for themselves, but for those people that live in their communities. So I discovered those 5 core practices, and I began to put them into practice in my own business. Now, Dale Carnegie moved from Missouri to New York City, and even though he was renting a room in the Y, he still had a very large platform there in New York City. Nonetheless, as Gage and I were talking about a moment ago, he said he was surprised I'm from Virginia. If he knew anything about Pennsylvania County, he'd be even more surprised. He said, you're an internationally known speaker, and I said, yes, I am, from Pennsylvania County. I live in Dry Fork. Where the heck is that, Virginia? And I get that all the time from people in China, Kuala Lumpur, and other places. Where the heck is Dry Fork? I said, it's just down the road from Tight Squeeze. Okay? And if you don't know where Tight Squeeze is, just come see me. I'll draw you a little map. We'll Google it. You'll see. We have a CVS and a Food Line in Tight Squeeze, so don't you laugh too hard. And we actually have a traffic light. It's absolutely wonderful. It's Highway 29. That's right, we have a McDonald's. Somebody's been there. Okay. Coffee's pretty good. You ever stop at the Hardee's? It's a little greasy for me. I'm lobbying for a KFC right there in Tight Squeeze. That's what I really want. Oh, the Raceway. You know, the Raceway.
It's closed.
It closed recently. I can't tell you why in public, but I'll tell you a little more. So, was it when he was talking about incarceration and we added to Sheriff Mike Taylor's jail, I think. But anyway, that's another story for a private conversation, right? So I began putting these 5 core practices into my business, and I began to notice things happening. In fact, I began writing these articles and content about these 5 core practices, and business people started finding me in Dry Fork, where the heck's that, Virginia? And as Gage will testify, that's quite an accomplishment, okay? So, but with technology, we began to discover them. In fact, so many people found me that Entrepreneur Magazine, perhaps you're familiar with that magazine? Entrepreneur Magazine found me in Dry Fork, where the heck's that, Virginia. They said, Dr. Joey, let's publish a book together. So they brought this incredible team together of editors and designers, and they created this beautiful book, Work Positive in a Negative World. And I said, okay, well, maybe my mother will buy a few copies. You know, if your mama won't buy your book, nobody will. Maybe I can put one on the coffee table at home. Maybe if it's a good day and I've been a good boy, honey will read it, you know. And so we published the book and we put it out in Friends from Dry Fork, where the heck's that, Virginia, in the first 18 hours, that book on Amazon. And there are about 10 bazillion books on Amazon. That book hit #1 in 3 different business categories on Amazon. Wow. From Dry Fork, where the heck's that, Virginia. We did that. 30 days later, it hit #1 again. Same 3 business categories. 90 days later, #1 again. Same 3 business categories on Amazon. Then the thought occurred to me, Joey, you may have discovered something here that people really will enjoy and can benefit from in the midst of this, the Great Recession. And particularly now as we're dangling, don't you love this imagery? We're dangling over a fiscal cliff. I have a fear of heights anyway. I wish some news pundit would find another analogy for that, because I have dreams about falling, and you know how you wake up just before you hit the bottom? Yeah, that's the imagery running through my head. #1, 3 different times in 3 different business categories, so I began to commit, and I committed that day, the 3rd time we hit #1 on Amazon, commit the rest of my life to helping great Americans just like you, and particularly public servants and leaders, to work positive in this negative world. Because if we continue to wait for other people to come in and rescue us, it ain't gonna happen, is it? But there's certain things we can do, these 5 core practices. So let me tell you just a little bit. I want to introduce you to these 5 core practices today. And I'd love to have a personal conversation with you about your business. But what I really want to address with you today is your role as a public servant in your local county. That first core practice, I perceive the positive at work. Say that again with me. I perceive the positive at work. Back during the Great Depression, Napoleon Hill wrote Think and Grow Rich. Hopefully a few of you have read that. W. Clement Stone also began talking to us about a positive mental attitude, our PMA. And so during that time, there was a lot of emphasis on, in the midst of the Great Depression, really focusing your mind on the positive and filtering out the negative. 1952, Dr. Norman Vincent Peale wrote perhaps the most popular book about positive thinking, and that's entitled The Power of Positive Thinking. Indeed, 1952 was the year that was published. What I discovered is that since then, positive thinking has gotten a bit of a tarnish on it. And here's what's happened. People think you're just talking about a namby-pamby, oh, just pretend like there's nothing wrong with the world kind of approach to life. Just be Pollyanna. We deal in reality. We have to deal with facts as supervisors. Yeah, well, absolutely we do. But the truth of the matter is, we see what we're looking for. Yes? We see what we're looking for. And that was the great discovery I made from Dale Carnegie and Harlan Sanders and Bill and Dave. When they began to look at their business in certain ways, their mind found ways of moving forward to accomplish that which they were looking for. I discovered the real power of you see what you're looking for one day when I was in a local restaurant in Pennsylvania County, actually in the city of Danville. The proprietor of that restaurant, whom I know personally, walked up to me, thanking me for being there, glad to be in town. It's Honey's favorite diner, and so of course that's where we were eating. And she comes over, Judy comes over to me, and says, Dr. Joey, this is my Judy voice, Dr. Joey, we're so glad to see you. And I said, I'm so glad to see you. Get up, give me a hug. And so I jumped up, and I enjoy hugging, and so it's good, improves circulation, and all. It's part of the wellness movement, in case you haven't heard, you know, good hugs, right? And so I gave Judy this nice hug, and she's a little bit shorter than me, so she hugged me around the waist, and she began patting my waist. Now you understand, that ain't a good thing. Okay, because that means I've been to McDonald's and Tight Squeeze a few too many times, right? And Honey's sitting there laughing, you know, because she knows probably about 5 pounds have crept up around here. And Judy pats my waist, and she says, Dr. Joey, have you lost weight? Of course, you know who my new best friend is, right? So I said, no, Judy, I haven't lost weight. It must be this floppy shirt. because I had on a turtleneck long sleeve and it was floppy. I didn't have the tail tucked in. But I took a step back and I looked at Judy, and guess what? Judy had lost about 50 pounds. And so I looked at Judy and I said, girl, I haven't lost any weight, but you sure have. And she said, yeah, don't I look good? I said, yeah, you do. Where'd you lose all that weight? I mean, how do you work in a restaurant and lose weight? Oh, it's just willpower, baby. Okay, Judy, that's great, that's great. And so I sit down and honey says, floppy shirt, huh? I know you gained 5 pounds. That's my reality check right there, you know. So I sat down and I'm eating my fried chicken. Of course, I eat fried chicken a lot, evidently. I should have been a Baptist preacher, right? And, whoa, shouldn't have said that out loud. Actually, I was for a while. And so I continue eating my fried chicken. And Margaret walks up. And Margaret says, hey, Dr. Joey, good to see you. Well, Margaret's about as tall as my supervisor, Brenda Bowman. She's petite, you know. Dynamite comes in small packages. And so here's Margaret, and Margaret hugs me around the waist, and guess what Margaret does? Pats my waist. And I'm thinking, oh, I'm not going to get off so easy this time, because Margaret, she tells the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but. So she pats my waist, and she looks at me, and she says, Dr. Joey, I think you gained weight. I said, no, Margaret, it must be this floppy shirt. No, Dr. Joey, I think you really gained weight. And I took another step back and I looked at Margaret. Guess what? Margaret had gained weight. I knew where Judy's weight had gone. It was on Margaret. But you understand, I've been married long enough not to say everything I think. So while I wanted to say, now Margaret, I hadn't gained any weight, but girl, you sure have. I said, nice to see you too. I should go into politics, shouldn't I? What did we learn from that experience? I'm still wearing the same floppy shirt. I didn't lose or gain any weight, pretty much stayed the same. But who did we learn something about? Judy and Margaret. Judy had lost weight. She was looking for somebody to comment about their weight loss because that's what she's looking for, and you see what you're looking for. Margaret had gained weight. What was Margaret looking for?
Somebody gained weight.
Somebody that gained weight, and so it was my lucky day. I was the one. Either that or there was a memo that went out that said it's National Pat Waist Day, and I just missed it or something. Margaret and Judy saw what they were looking for. Friends, when you come to your county and the many challenges, these oceans of opportunity, these waves of change that are coming your way, you will see what you're looking for. If you're looking for the worst economic times in your county's history, guess what? You'll find them. If you're looking for some opportunities to enact some lean management or find new opportunities so you can innovate and create, guess what you'll find? You'll find those waves of change are washing up with oceans of opportunity. You see, your county, and more specifically the minds of the citizens of your county, are like soil. They'll grow whatever you plant in them. Literally, they'll grow whatever you plant in them. I learned this in a most dramatic way one day. Honey and I have several businesses, one of them of which we have together. She boards horses for people in Pennsylvania County and surrounding territory. And I work for her, okay? Any man that will tell you he doesn't work for his wife hasn't been married very long or will lie to you, one or the other, right? So it's kind of nice. I come off the road and I come home and honey says, here's your list or here's what I want you to do. And so this particular day, I had the wonderful opportunity to go outside in my work jeans and in my boots and my hat. And I look good, knows. Honey says I do. And she buys me power tools. I mean, you know, I've been married to her 30 years now, right? She buys me power tools. She says, honey, I want you to take your power tools out, and I want you to clean out from under the fence line. And I said, oh, do I have to? She said, yeah. And I said, oh, right, I'm going, you know, it's a rabbit in a briar patch. So I'm out there cleaning along under that fence line, and I come up on a maple tree sapling. Now, I grew up in eastern North Carolina, and I know that's not nearly as nice a place to grow up as just Virginia, or anywhere in Virginia, right? Well, it's kind of like Eastern Virginia, though. We only had pine trees, and they grew like volunteers. There just weren't many hardwoods. So this time of year, the fall of the year, is kind of, it's still green or brown or something like that. And I looked at this maple tree sapling, and I saw in that maple tree sapling like a 35 to 40, if I live long enough, maybe a 90-foot tall maple tree, just blaze orange in the fall of the year. So I looked at that little maple tree sapling and I said, buddy, stay right there. He agreed. And I went off to get my tree transplanting shovel. And so I came back. Honey buys me lots of shovels too. So I came back and I was just about to dig up that little bitty maple tree sapling, and I backed off at the last second. Because growing right beside that thing that would become this beautiful blaze orange, huge tree in the fall was poison ivy. Anybody ever had poison ivy besides me? Okay, friends. Make sure you're sitting down at the board meeting when you have poison ivy, because I promise you, the more people there are in the room that night, the more you're going to have to scratch in places you can't do in public. And you don't want to be a professional speaker with your image cast on 20-foot video screens, because you know where you're going to itch then. So I looked at the poison ivy and I said, oh, I don't want poison ivy and I don't want it on my shovel. So I stood back contemplating what to do, how to get that maple tree sapling out of the ground, and how to avoid the poison ivy, when it occurred to me, growing side by side was something that would become a 90-foot colossal blaze orange thing of beauty in the fall, and poison ivy. The soil didn't care what it grew. It simply grew that which was planted in it. Your mind, your constituents' minds, your entire county's mind, the collective consciousness of your county will grow what you plant in it. The words you speak set tones of expectation. Choose your words carefully because they plant thoughts. Focus on the positive, filter out the negative. Focus on the positive, filter out the negative. Say that with me. Focus on the positive and filter out the negative. Acknowledge the negative, yes, but focus on that positive as you talk to your constituents and as you go about throughout your citizenry. So the first core practice I discovered and put into place in my business that you can put into place in your county government is that we perceive the positive. The second one I discovered was I conceive the positive. Would you say that with me? I conceive the positive. And this is that social dynamic. Because here you are focusing on the positive, filtering out the negative. You're planting positive maple trees, not irritating poison ivy, right? And you're planting that in your county so that your county can embrace this ocean of opportunity in the midst of this wave of change. And as you do that, you begin to notice that not everybody's on the A train, are they? Not everybody's positive. Do you have a few negative constituents in you? Yeah. Do they stop you in the grocery store as you're just trying to buy some yogurt or coffee for the next morning and say, well, I don't know why y'all did that. Whose idea was that? And of course it was whose idea? Yours. And they stop you right there in the grocery store, and as Grandad used to say, they'll lay you out among the roast sweet peas right there, right? Just exchanging all this negativity. How do you deal with those negative people? Well, without becoming one yourself. Because I don't know about you, but after a while, when I'm dealing with so many negative people, I've been known to get a little bit grumpy occasionally. Do you ever get a little bit grumpy? And what you want to say to that person in the grocery store, you don't say, but when you get back home, you deliver the mail to the wrong address. What you want to say to that knucklehead citizen, you say to your, we love all of our citizenry, I know. This is a great country because we all have the freedom to say what we want. It's just sometimes we share ignorance, don't we? Yeah, whoops, it's a great experiment in democracy. But sometimes you deliver that mail to the honey address instead of to the constituent address. How do you deal with negative people without becoming one yourself? I absolutely love negative people. Now, I know you think I'm crazy, Kathy, but now you're questioning my sanity. Her eyebrows just went up 6 degrees. You know? Dr. Joe, you love negative people. Yes, I love negative people. I have sold a lot of books because of negative people, okay? My daughters were educated because of negative people, okay? So the book sales have been outstanding. I even, Kathy, have a pet name for negative people because we can't call them by name, really. You know, we can't do that in a board meeting, even if it's a private board meeting, right? I have a pet name for negative people, and that pet name is Eeyore Vampires. And why do I call them Eeyore Vampires? Well, you remember from Winnie the Pooh, right? You got Pooh and Piglet and T-I-double-G-R, and what are they doing? They're having a board meeting, right? What is their board meeting about? They're setting the agenda for the perfect play day for Christopher Robin. Christopher Robin's going to have this wonderful play day because Pooh and Piglet and T.I. meet. And they set the agenda and they enact the legislation, and it's going to be an absolutely wonderful day. Yes? And then who walks up? Ambles up slowly, methodically. And what does he say? It'll never work. You have constituents like that. They say things like, it'll never work. We tried that back in 1978. Didn't work then. Ain't gonna work now. Y'all can try it if you want to. You like the way I said it, want to? I've been in Pennsylvania County 15 years now. I say, you want to? Somebody said to me at breakfast this morning, there you go. And I almost went, hey, I know where you're from. But I didn't. I restrained myself. So that's the Eeyore. Now the Eeyore is fine, and we need resistance because we have to critically examine all of our ideas, particularly before we enact them. But Eeyore, when the sun goes down, morphs. Have you ever noticed that? You wish Eeyore was just this plush, cuddly pet that you could put up on the shelf in the boardroom and leave there. Walk out. But when the sun goes down, who's ringing your phone? When the sun goes down, who's in the back of your mind? Stealing time away from your honey, or your children, or the people that you love to do things with. It's a vampire, isn't it? Eeyore, when the sun goes down, turns into a vampire and sucking time, energy, and attention away from the people that you love the most. Yes? Is this the way the experience is? Yes? So how do you deal with negative people without becoming one? Here are the 3 R's of how you deal with Eeyore vampires without becoming one yourself quickly. First, you redirect the conversation. In the grocery store, wherever you might find yourself, in the board meeting, you redirect that conversation. That is, you unplug from negativity and you plug into positivity. You take the conversation in a 180-degree different direction. You say something like, well, you may be right about that, but I went to the VACO meeting the other day and I heard this speaker, Dr. Joey Faucette, and he told us that his nephew is Dan Ugla, the starting second baseman for the Atlanta Braves. Is that cool or what? That's true. Since Honey's here for complete transparency, and so I can't hide behind plausible deniability, I must tell you that I married into this great family. He is her nephew first. Okay, is that all right? Did I get that right? You redirect the conversation. You take the energy away from the negativity and you put it into something positive. That's a redirect of a negative conversation. That's the first R of how you deal with negative people without becoming one. The second one is you reframe the conversation. You reframe the conversation. That is, you still are about that subject, but you make it about a positive spin on that subject. Yes, I know we don't give quite enough money to XYZ, whatever their pet project is, but we did give ABC amount this past year, and let me tell you what they were able to accomplish with that amount of money. You see how it's still kind of on the subject, but you're reframing it totally so that you're giving positive energy to that which they see negatively. It's kind of like playing with a Rubik's Cube. You remember those. You spin it around so there's a different color that's showing, hopefully a brighter color that they can see at that moment. So first you redirect, then you reframe. And then the third R of how to deal with negative people without becoming one is you remove yourself. It's like a contagious virus, this negativity. And if you spend more time with negative people, guess what happens to you? You become negative yourself. So you want to remove yourself from that conversation. If you're a business owner and it's an employee, understand that morale goes down because of that employee. Productivity follows morale. Profitability follows your productivity. This Eeyore vampire employee has their hand in your pocket and are taking money out of it. Same thing with the county government, only we can't fire citizens, right? We can encourage them to move to a neighboring county, go to this county, I don't like them, why don't you move over there? I can't do that. You may be right, is a great line to use because in their minds they are. You may be right. And then you remove yourself from that conversation as quickly as possible. That's what Dale Carnegie did, Bill and Dave and Harlan Sanders. They focused their time, energy, and attention on positive people and spent just as much time with them as they could. So first, I perceive the positive mentally. I conceive it socially by learning how to deal with negative people without becoming one myself. And then the third core practice I discovered is I believe the positive. Would you say that with me? I believe the positive. This is that emotional engagement with why you do what you do. But it's also suspending your disbelief willingly, not basing this ocean of opportunity on the wave of change that just knocked you off your feet. Okay? So you begin to embrace that ocean of opportunity. And in order to do that, you willingly suspend your disbelief that it can't be done, because sometimes we all begin to act like you are vampires, right? And you begin to see a way that it can happen. Now, how do you begin to spread that around and to make that happen? I wish we had time today, and when I do this presentation in a workshop format, I always bring up somebody who is an appleologist. That is somebody who studies apples. So I would absolutely love to have time today for somebody from Albemarle County or Bedford County or one of those great. We produce some great apples in Virginia, don't we? You don't like apples? We produce some great apples in Virginia, don't we? Yeah, okay. I just want to make sure you're still awake. We sure do. We go over to Stewart every fall, to Patrick County, and get our apples. They're absolutely wonderful apples. Wish I had time to bring one of you experts, one of you appleologists up. But I'll just tell you, because I've had frequent conversations with appleologists, that there are about maybe 10 seeds inside of this apple. Now, if I were to ask you, what am I holding in my hand, 9.9 out of 10 of you would say, an apple, one apple. Yeah, what's wrong with you? Is that a trick question? Yeah, is this another one of those things that made me look foolish in front of my constituency? No, it's just an apple. But then I would begin to talk to you about, there are about 10 seeds inside of that apple, and what do we do with apple seeds? We plant them, and as we plant them, what begins to happen? They grow up into trees. So let's say that out of those 10 seeds, let's say that how many live? 5? Is that an okay number? 5 seeds live, so that's 50-50. Wouldn't you love to get those kind of results in your county, right? Where every great idea you planted, half of them actually took root and grew. So 5 out of the 10 grow, and they are apple trees. Let's say that the average apple tree produces, what, 100 apples in a season? Just play along here. And if you're from Bedford County and it's more than that, just be nice to me right now and talk to me in private, okay? So let's say 100 apples come off each apple tree. So in my first year of production, I've got 5 apple trees that live, and they're producing 100 apples each. So how many apples do I have? I have 500 apples, each of which produce 10 seeds, 5 of which live. I plant those 10 seeds, 5 of them live. Each of those produces 100 and 100 more and 100 more. And so how many apples am I really holding in my hand? Hundreds, thousands. If I keep planting long enough, how many am I holding? Yes, an infinite amount of apples. I know these ways of change are tough, and I know the constituency mindset of our citizenry is that they're scared to death. They're scared to death for very personal reasons, but as a courageous leader in your community, you plant seeds of positivity. How do you do that? One citizen at a time. You have interested, passionate citizens who come to you and are open to great ideas and want to be a part of this ocean of opportunity. Discover them, know them, go plant in them great ideas, collaborate with them, partner with them. Find ways to grow. And then as they begin to grow and produce their own apples, ask them, who do you know? Who's another citizen like you that wants to be a part of the solution, that wants to just enjoy this ocean of opportunity as opposed to getting knocked down by wave after change? Go and find them and plant in them these positive ideas. And do you see what begins to happen? How many citizens do we have in our county after a while that are for these oceans of opportunity? That are a part of the solution? Did you hear Bill Howell talking about Stafford County and how many people are moving into that county now because great things are happening and they've made strategic decisions and there's a lot of positivity rolling around? They planted it one person at a time. Go back from this VACO meeting and focus on the positive and filter out the negative as you perceive the positive. Conceive it. with these citizens who want to embrace these oceans of opportunity and then go plant in them because you believe that positive things can happen in your county. The fourth core practice I discovered was all about the fruits of this planting labor. I discovered that I achieve the positive is results driven. Say that with me. I achieve the positive. This is what we've been looking for. These are the outcomes. This is improvement in the lifestyle of our citizenry. These are the outcomes and the benefits that accrue to those who live within your county. These are the people you're working for. These are the people whom you love dearly. What I discovered from Dale Carnegie and Harlan Sanders and Bill and Dave was that there was an achievement prescription which put in place the prior three core practices and prepared for the fifth. That achievement prescription of how to achieve the positive in this negative world is this: attention plus intention plus action equals this positive lifestyle. Attention. Pay attention to positive thoughts and positive people. Perceive and conceive. Pay attention to positive thoughts and positive people. Put a border guard around your mind and refuse to rent space to negativity in your mind. Now, I know that's difficult, particularly if your idea of waking up in the morning is grabbing the TV remote control and turning on the news. Particularly if you begin to read the local newspaper or listen to the local radio station and hear them misquoting you. Anybody ever been misquoted here? Maybe a time or two? Have you ever read something in your local paper and thought to yourself, is that what I said? We just get misquoted a lot. Remember, the basic journalistic mantra is, if it bleeds, it leads. These people are in business to monetize negativity. They're knowing somebody's getting bitten, and they're hoping a man's biting a dog. That's what they're hoping, because that, they think, sells newspaper. As a servant leader in your county, you understand something different. You've got a border guard around your mind, so you're refusing to rent space in your mind to this negativity. So you begin your day by focusing on the positive things that are going on within your county. I know it's a dire situation. I know we're on this fiscal cliff, and we're concerned about a great recession rolling in on us again. But if you sat down and thought for 30 seconds, I promise you, you could come up with 3 positive aspects of living in your county. Yes? Yeah. You could, yes? Yeah. I hope so, or I'm wondering why you were elected. Can you come up with 3 positive things in about 30 seconds of living in your county? Yes? Yeah. Do that and start your day that way, as opposed to reading what other people are saying about you, other people who are in business to monetize negativity. Okay? So you're paying attention to positive thoughts. You're paying attention to positive people. You have the same border guard around your relationships. You're finding citizens who want to be a part of the solution. So that's attention to positive thoughts and positive people, plus intention. Anybody have some stuff hanging around on their to-do list that you're waiting for a bushel basket or round to it? And once I get that bushel basket around to it, I'll be able to get this stuff on my to-do list done. What about you? We all, especially when we're in the political arena, in such a public arena, we all have certain fears and frustrations that keep us from acting and moving forward into being a part of the solution and embracing these ways of change so that the oceans of opportunity come. Discover what those are in my book. There's a great chapter, Intention is the Road to Nowhere, and helps you deal with fear, failure, perfectionism, and things like this. Attention to positive thoughts and positive people, plus intention, that's the emotional engagement, plus action, plus action. When you put this achievement prescription into place, you literally are getting a GPS for your county's success built right into your leadership as a supervisor in your county. This GPS directs you toward the goal where you want to be. Now, a few years ago, Honey wanted a GPS. And I didn't understand why, because I asked her why, and I said, you have one, me. Whenever I travel with you, I tell you, okay, in about a quarter of a mile, you're going to turn right up here. And she said, yeah, but I don't like your answer when I miss the turn. I said, what's that? What's that? I just tell you. I just ask you. You asked me why I missed the turn, and I don't know why. The GPS is nicer than you. I said, well, okay, I'll get you a GPS. Did you know you can choose voices on these GPS? She chose a voice that doesn't sound a thing like mine, and I think I have a pretty good voice. You know? She chose an Australian male voice. What is up with that? He sounds like Keith Urban. Of course, every time I hear him, I think of Nicole Kidman. But she has Keith Urban on the mind, and so when she misses this right turn in a quarter mile, Keith Urban simply says, recalculating. Please make a U-turn when legally possible. And I swear I thought the other day he called her honey. I'm like, what? This GPS, although some of you, if you followed your GPS here, oh my God, I'm never doing that again. The third sign I passed that said, GPS routing not advised. I knew I was in a heap of trouble. Talk about, there are no sinners in foxholes. There are none when you're back here hearing banjo music either. You're going down roads where you just aren't sure where you are. So a little of the luster of miles wore off on the way here. That was a good thing for me, but I was driving, unfortunately. This GPS for your county, you do a couple of things to make sure you arrive at this positive destination of success. First, you listen to it. What good is a GPS if you don't listen to it, right? You listen to the great things that you discover in meetings like this. You listen to your constituents because there's so many wonderful ideas out there. And then second thing you do is you continue driving forward. You cannot recalculate from a dead standstill, friends. You continue to move forward. And as you do, you recalculate. So there is no goal of perfectionism. There's simply recalculating from one point to the next, to the next. That's how you achieve the positive as a leader in your community. You perceive it, you conceive it, you believe it, then you achieve it. And then the fifth core practice I discovered was you receive it. What goes around really does. You really do reap what you sow. Zig Ziglar said it best. If you help other people get what they want, you get what you want. I discovered the dramatic power of servant leadership, which all of you know because you've committed your time, energy, and attention to serving your community in this way. But I discovered it in a dramatic, personal way on my 40th birthday. Now, Brenda, please don't ask me how long ago that was, because that was more than a few years, okay? Honey knows that I'm a shy, quiet, demure kind of guy. Not too many people know me, and I don't know too many people. So she only had about 300 of my closest friends out to our farm for a birthday party. It was an absolutely wonderful party. We had all sorts of people there. People drove, people came. They brought food, which is always a great thing at a birthday party. And we just had a marvelous time. I could hardly eat for hugging people who were patting my waist. You know, it was an absolutely great day. But then these people left, and they went back to their homes, and our two daughters were living with us at that time. They were still young. And Honey looked at me and said, the girls are spending the night with friends. Okay, you got to set up here. It's my birthday. The friends are all gone, and the girls are spending the night with friends. My lucky day, okay? And so then it gets even better. Honey invites me into our home and says, I want you to close your eyes and hold out your hands, and I'm going to give you a big surprise. I have never obeyed Honey so fast in my entire life. My eyes were shut, my arms were extended. I was ready for that big surprise that you're thinking about. And I had to take you back 14 years because that big surprise you were thinking about, that got Honey pregnant with our first daughter. Who knew you could pass each other in the hall and it would happen, right? It really could. So when that baby was, I'd never been married to a pregnant woman before. I didn't know during that middle trimester. Okay, Tim. My own home county sitting up here like, I'd never gotten a woman pregnant before, okay? I know where you were going with that. All right, so I didn't know during that middle trimester we feather the nest. That is, guys, we decorate the nursery, which requires a shopping trip each weekend. Two places that aren't anything like a Bass Pro Shop, okay? But I go because this is my first experience and I knew I had to. So, I went gladly. We went to the Stork's Nest, a delightful little gift shop. I didn't know there were so many different kinds of baby cribs. I'd been to hospitals. They have stainless steel cages in hospitals, right? I thought they were all like that. Baby has an accident in there, you pull out the pressure washer, pour Clorox water. Baby in crib, drip dry, it's a good day. No, not so low maintenance. We found the crib, the perfect crib. It was the Jenny Lind crib. Oh, women are nodding their heads and smiling. And the guys are going, what? Jenny, hey! All I knew was I did what I typically do when I'm shopping with Honey. I reached out and grabbed the price tag. 30 minutes later, local EMS crew had me away. But being a can-do kind of guy, learning how to work positive, even at that young age, I went back home and I said, I'm going to find something to sell to buy my baby the most beautiful baby crib in the world. So I went to our bedroom, and I went into my part of our bedroom, which happened to be the back right-hand part of the closet. And I pulled out my shotgun. My shotgun. This was a special shotgun, not that I was overly attached to it or anything, but it's a Remington 870 Wing Master Pump Action Shotgun, 12 gauge, with a 28-inch barrel, modified choke, vent rib, and genuine walnut, not veneer, stock. Not that I was overly attached to the gun. I received that gun when I was 13 years old. I don't know about the county in which you live, but in Edgecombe County of North Carolina, it was a rite of passage. A boy became a man at 13, and they gave him a gun. Think of it as a, kind of like a redneck bar mitzvah. Not that I was overly attached to this gun or anything. But I looked at the gun and I said, buddy, you gotta go. He said, why? What'd I do? And I said, Mama needs a crib. Oh, see you later. So I put my shotgun into the leather, not pleather, ma'am, leather case, zipped it up. Headed off to the gun shop to sell it. Stopped by to see my best buddy, James. James says, where are you going? I said, the gun shop. He said, why? I said, sell a shotgun. Are you crazy? Yes, baby needs a crib. Oh, how much you want for it? James had a nose for a deal, you understand. So I sold the gun to James, probably less than I could have gotten at the gun shop. But nonetheless, my gun had a good home. Went back, went to the stork's nest, bought the crib. Crib, she was right, as she always is. Two beautiful daughters, Rebecca and Elizabeth, in that crib. It's in the attic now, waiting on grandchildren. If the government doesn't decide the slats are too far apart, you understand, we'll be able to use it again. All right? You with me? Nothing personal there. I'm talking federal government. All right, so here I stand, my 40th birthday. All our friends are gone. The girls are spending the night. I've got you-know-what on the brain. My eyes are closed, arms outstretched, and guess what she places in my arms? Not just any shotgun, my shotgun. She got in the car. She called James first. James, do you still have that shotgun Joey sold you years ago? Yeah, I do. My grandson's about to turn 13. James, I'd like to buy that from you. Joey's getting ready to turn 40. I thought it'd make a great birthday present for him. Joey's turning how old? Okay. James, I want to buy the gun. Gun's not for sale. Giving it to my grandson. James, I'll pay you whatever you want. Honey is really good with our money. James said, Joey's turning how old, 40? Nah, gun's not for sale, but I'll give it to you. So she drove down, picked up the gun, brought it back to me. You see, friends, when you help other people get what they want, you see, you really do reap what goes around does. So when you get back to your home county, please, please, focus on the positive and filter out the negative as you perceive the positive in your county. Please, please, conceive it. Deal with those negative people without becoming one yourself. Believe positive things are going to happen. There are a ton of people standing in line telling you can't do anything but let this wave of change knock you down and drown you. There's an ocean of opportunity. You just keep planting seeds until you find a way to make it happen. And that's when you will achieve the positive by following that achievement prescription. And then when it's all said and done and we're on the backside of all this Great Recession talk and life is even better in the great Commonwealth of Virginia, we can talk about that VACO meeting and how much we receive the positive from being a member of VACO and being a part of this great Commonwealth. Yes? Then let's go and let's work positive in the great Commonwealth of Virginia. I join you in your efforts, and I thank you for your time and your energy and your attention today. Thank you so very much.